I wanted to ask, we were at MIP TV with all the TV broadcasters 2 weeks ago in Cannes and spoke to a lot of people. We spoke to France TV, the biggest broadcaster there, and they said that nearly half of their TV viewing now is through digital, which kind of blew my mind. But tell me, for you guys, just give us sort of the overview of where things stand in terms of digital consumption, and I mean over-the-top mobile versus standard television delivery. What's the mix and where might it be going?
We're certainly not in that stage in the UK, and there's no sign actually in the very near future that we'll get to that sort of point. What we are seeing is a difference in online, if like over-the-top viewing, program by program. So you may have something like The Only Way is Essex, which has a particular target audience, so 16 to 34-year-old young adults, which actually you are seeing more viewing in the over-the-top services than you are in a straight linear broadcast. But then live event TV, which is a lot about what ITV is about. So we had Broadchurch, which was the end of a 12-part drama series. It broadcast its final episode when the killer was revealed. It had 8.6 million in a broadcast, in a straight linear broadcast environment, but it's online viewing because, of course, if you didn't know who'd done it and you wanted to catch up the next day, you're going to find out from somebody else in the office, had very low. So it really depends in the UK, certainly as far as our experience is concerned, on the nature of the programme and the nature of the audience in terms of their viewing habits.
Now, speaking of the audience, we're going to have a lot more discussion about addressability or reaching that audience and the opportunity now where it's sort of, and our friends at Nielsen are going to talk about what they're doing. What are the opportunities now to address or to find specific audiences? And, is that sort of here now? Is it a bit of the holy grail that you're chasing? Where does that stand in terms of what's generally spoken of as addressability?
Yeah, I think be very, very careful here. There are many aspects to this addressability. First of all, I think we're starting in the wrong place. If the technology is here, that's fantastic, but we have to start with the people. They're humans. And whatever anything else happens, you as an individual are a very different person if you're on the terraces of Chelsea and you've just scored a goal than you are reading your daughter, your 3-year-old daughter, a bedtime story. And yet, from a demographic perspective, you're the same. So from our world, really, we welcome the technology, we welcome the addressability of it, but that is only part of the mix. If you ignore that, if you ignore the context and the environment, then actually you're getting to a state where you're not being as effective as you possibly can. Our concern is the rush to technology, the rush to define this sort of nirvana where I can target everybody, I know exactly who they are, ignores a basic human principle that humans, when they're consuming something, that dictates their state of mind and their attitude. And so we have to be very careful not to suddenly say, there it is, and run over there and think that we found the answer to all things, because I think it's part of a mix rather than just a single thing.
So we're here in this gigantic media agency, and with a lot of very important people in this room who are involved with publishers, broadcasters such as yourself, in establishing the marketplace, establishing the value around digital media, which is different from television. Where does that marketplace stand, and what are some of the dynamics? And there is this force that you mentioned of technology, but how do you, as a producer of very premium content, kind of establish, maintain the price point, the value through this new world?
Yeah, I think for us as broadcasters, on ITV we'll spend £1 billion on our content this year, and that, going back to this idea of context, actually, we produce a completely different environment to, if you like, a YouTube environment where it's short clips viewed for very short periods. That's a completely different environment to ours. We believe that when people are consuming long-form video content in an over-the-top service, actually that is not enormously different to then consuming it through a linear broadcast. Back to the previous gentleman's point, it doesn't matter what glass you're coming through, it's what the content you're consuming that defines who you are and how you do it. And what we're seeing at ITV is actually, nor does the consumer see the difference. It is ITV that they're watching, and they're probably more importantly to them, it's the program they're watching, and it's the quality of that that I think sustains the premium. And you know, for us at ITV, it's always been about content. It will always be about content, and the quality of that content is the thing that we define ourselves against the rest of the market, really.
And speaking of great content, how does that monetize on mobile? Because it's a new world, and I think whatever conferences we go to, mobile's exploding.
Yeah.
But the advertising ecosystem is not quite there. Where might that go, or how are you dealing with serving this quality content to consumers in the mobile environment?
Yeah, I mean, I think we have to make sure that we give them the best possible experience they can have, and there's a huge investment that goes behind the ITV player, much as the BBC iPlayer. So we need to make sure the quality of delivery is right. We then, the mobile environment we have to be very careful of as well, because it is a slightly different consumer experience from an advertising point of view. So we have restricted the amount of advertising we carry in the mobile environment vis-a-vis our linear environment. And
why is that? Could you explain that?
Well, I think it's really it goes back to this thing. What does the human want? And when they're watching linear TV, they're in a lean-back experience that's being broadcast to them. Perhaps when they're in mobile, and we certainly saw this in PC, it's more of a lean-forward, it's a pull. So we need to be very careful about overloading the ad content on there. And also, I mean, one of our biggest things at the moment is actually, you know, this is a growing market for people consuming long-form content, but it's not growing as fast as the demand from the advertisers. And you know, I don't know when that apex will cross over, but at the moment we're pretty well sold out. You know, we don't have any more inventory to sell, and we're not prepared to lift our ad load beyond where we are currently. So that, to an extent, dictates the premium that we can charge in the marketplace.
In a sort of unrelated but perhaps related question about the second screen, we've heard a lot about that. We were very fortunate to go to ZBox and interview Anthony Rose yesterday. What they're doing is fascinating. What are your thoughts about the second screen and the importance of that and some of your plans? Okay,
there are two things going on that we see in second screen, and I'll give some figures now. Britain's Got Talent had roughly 847,000 downloads of the app. That is enormous. But at any one point in time, there are about 12,000 people using it, which isn't enormous. And yet there's another statistic that turns it on its head. The buzzer was pressed 44 million times. I mean, you know, this is extraordinary. So what we're actually seeing is we're gradually stepping our way there. We know there's a demand for it. We know that people want to get engaged with it. It's what we put on there that we're discovering that works and then doesn't work. And funny enough, we're also talking to ZBox to understand what's working in their environment. We've recently announced, well, actually, the end of last year, we announced this deal we're doing with Shazam, which is all about us creating a two-way communication between what you see on screen and what you have on your second screen. So I think we're in a very, very young world here, you know, and I think perhaps potentially where we are going to end up, and where I'd love to see us as a broadcast industry, is a single super app that covers the whole of broadcast, that has a uniformity in it that the consumer immediately understands, immediately feels at home with, and then build in the different aspects of the different programs, you know, because you're not going to have the same type of interaction in a Britain's Got Talent as you are in some of our dramas. So I don't know quite where we're going to end up. I hope that we end up in that position, and that would certainly be our ambition at ITV, but you know, who knows.
Simon, thank you so much for your time. Outstanding.